The consumption of the feminine is not a regional problem. It is a global one. It just wears different clothes depending on where you're standing. In some places, the cage is visible. You can see the bars clearly. In other places, the cage is made of gold. It is beautiful. It looks like freedom, but it is still a cage. Safety in the public square and safety in the private one are two completely different things. The most dangerous place for a woman in the West is not the street, it is her own home. The most equal societies on the equality index are also among the most dangerous for the woman behind closed doors. This is the mental tax of being a woman. A constant, low-level background calculation that men almost never have to run. You cannot honor the feminine by making her invisible. That is not devotion. That is erasure. Three different approaches, one result. The feminine is not safe anywhere. Not fully, not yet. The world does not change from the top down. It changes from the home outwards. From the man who decided today to be different from the pattern. Freedom for the feminine is not a gift the masculine gives her. It is the natural state she returns to when the consuming stops. In the last episode, we talked about what happens when the feminine depletes, when she is consumed instead of protection, when she gives and gives without anything solid beneath her. And I want to continue that today because I want to address something that a lot of people assume. When we talk about the feminine being consumed, people often think this is a problem that belongs to a specific part of the world, a specific culture, a specific religion, somewhere far away. I want to dismantle that assumption today. The consumption of the feminine is not a regional problem. It is a global one. It just wears different clothes depending on where you're standing. In some places, the cage is visible. You can see the bars clearly. In other places, the cage is made of gold. It is beautiful. It looks like freedom, but it is still a cage. This is episode 16 of the 0600 protocol. These are the golden cages. Let us start with what a developed world got right, because it is important to acknowledge this. In much of the West, in Australia, in Europe, in parts of Americas, the public square has been made relatively safe for feminine, for women, for girls, for ladies. She can walk into most careers. She can own properties. She can vote, lead, speak, create. She can walk on the street in the middle of the day or night without calculating the risk of it. This is real. This matters. The women in generations before us fought hard for this ground, and it is not nothing. But here is what I want you to look at. The developed world built safety in the public space and then congratulated itself, declared the problem mostly solved, pointed to the laws, the rights, the equality indexes, and said, see, we are progressive. But safety in the public square and safety in the private one are two completely different things. And while the laws were being written and the rights were being declared, inside the home of those same progressive societies, the old pattern kept running, quietly, invisibly, behind closed doors. This is the paradox of the developed world. The woman who is legally free in the morning goes home at night to a private sphere that the law can barely reach. The most dangerous place for a woman in the West is not the street, it is her own home. The data on this is staggering, and it is consistent across every developed nation on earth. In Australia, a country that prides itself on equality, the Prime Minister stood in Parliament in 2024 and declared violence against women a national crisis. Not a social concern, a crisis, because women were being killed by intimate partners at the highest rate recorded in nearly a decade. In the Nordic countries, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, which consistently rank as the most gender equal societies in the world, researchers have found something that stops people cold. Intimate partner violence rates are among the highest in the developed world. The most equal societies on the Equality Index are also among the most dangerous for the women behind closed doors. Sociologists call this the Nordic Paradox, but there is nothing paradoxical about it once you understand what is actually happening. You can legislate equality in the public square. You cannot legislate the beliefs a man carries into his own home. The entitlement that was never addressed, the assumption never named, never challenged, that she owes him something. Her body, her compliance, her availability, her silence about the things he does not want spoken. The law changed faster than the culture did, and the culture lives in the private space, in the bedroom, in the kitchen. In the thousand small ways, a man either protects or diminishes the woman he lives with. No law reaches there. Only his own understanding of what the feminine actually is and what she deserves. And even outside the home, even in the public square that was declared safe, there is a cost that women carry that most men have never once had to consider. Research across developed nations shows that less than half of women feel safe walking alone at night in their own neighborhood. In countries with functioning police forces, in countries with street lighting and CCTV cameras everywhere, in countries where the law is firmly on her side, still less than half feel safe. What does the other half do? They pay a tax, not in money, in mental energy. They calculate routes before they leave the house. They share their live location with a friend. When they go somewhere new, they carry their keys a specific way. They change what they wear based on where they are going. They sit in certain seats on public transport. They pay for a taxi instead of walking because the walk feels like a risk. Every single time they leave, every single day. This is the mental tax of being a woman. A constant, low-level background calculation that men almost never have to run. And it is exhausting in a way that is very hard to explain to someone who has never paid it. She is not anxious because something is wrong with her. She is vigilant because experience has taught her to be. And the world has not yet given her enough reason to stop. Now I had to go a layer deeper, because even where the physical danger is reduced, the consumption of the feminine continues, just in a more sophisticated form. In the Western world, her body is everywhere, on a billboard, in advertising, in the marketing of products that have nothing to do with her body. Her image is used to sell cars, insurances, technology, even beer. She is consumed visually, her beauty extracted and monetized, while she receives nothing of that value in return. In the pornography industry, one of the largest industries on earth, her body is the product consumed daily by millions of people in a way that reduces her to a physical function, not a person, a function. And the women who enter the world often do so not from freedom, but from a prior depletion, a prior erosion of self-worth that made it feel like the only option, or the easiest one, or the one that finally gave her some form of power over the very thing that had always been taken without her permission. This is not judgment. This is a pattern. And the pattern points back to the same root. When a society spends decades consuming the image of the feminine without ever protecting the actual feminine, it produces a generation of women who have learned to see themselves through that consumption, who have learned that their value is in their appearance, their availability, their willingness to be pleasing, and who have never been shown what it looks like to be fully, deeply, completely themselves and valued for that. And then at the extreme end of the spectrum, there is a form of feminine suppression that does not pretend to be anything else. In parts of world governed by fundamentalist law, the feminine is not consumed, she is erased. Not a metaphor, literally. She is removed from public education, removed from public spaces, removed from the right to be seen. The state claims ownership of her visibility, how much of her face is shown, whether she can be in a park, whether she can work, whether she has any say at all in the direction of her own life. And this is all done in the name of God, in the name of morality, in the name of protecting her. But a woman who has been removed from existence has not been protected. She has been disappeared. You cannot honor the feminine by making her invisible. That is not devotion. That is erasure. And erasure is the most complete form of consumption because it does not even leave a trace to mourn about. So let us look at the full picture. In some parts of the world, the feminine is consumed in public, harassed, restricted, reduced. The consumption is loud and visible. In other parts of the world, the feminine is consumed in private, behind the closed door of the home, behind the screen of the device, behind the invisible labor that nobody calls work. The consumption is quiet and invisible. And at the extreme, she is simply removed, made not to exist. Three different approaches, one result. The feminine is not safe anywhere, not fully, not yet. And the reason is always the same. The masculine in its corrupted form has not yet understood its actual purpose. Its purpose is not to consume the feminine. Its purpose is not to control her. Its purpose is not to erase her. Its purpose is to be the ground that makes her full expression possible. And until the masculine accepts that purpose, the cages remain, whether they are made of iron or woven in gold. The most advanced societies in the world and the least advanced both have a woman inside them who is not fully free. Not because freedom was never declared, because the masculine, the actual daily lived masculine of each man in each home has not yet become what it was built to be. The ground, the stillness, the unshakable presence that says, I am here. I see you. Your nature is not a problem to be managed. It is a force to be honored. Now, I do not want to end this episode in darkness, because the darkness is only a diagnosis. And every diagnosis exists to point towards a correction. The correction is not a political movement. It is not a law. It is not a protest. It is a division made by individual men in individual homes every single morning. The decision to become the ground, to acknowledge the invisible labor, to hold the space during the emotional storms, to refuse to participate in the consumption of the feminine in any of its form, in the home, in the media, in the culture, to build something instead. Because the world does not change from the top down. It changes from the home outwards. From the man who decided today to be different from the pattern. From the morning that begins with that decision already made. And that is exactly where this series is going next. Because we have diagnosed the problem across every geography. Now we start building the architecture of the solution. The beginning with what happens inside the man who chooses to change, beginning at 6. The cage is real. Whether it is made of iron bars or golden ones, whether it is loud or silent, whether it is enforced by the government or by the culture, or by the quite daily expectations of a home that has never been questioned, the cage is real. And every human being living inside one deserves better than to be told that the cage they are in is actually freedom. Freedom for the feminine is not a gift the masculine gives her. It is the natural state she returns to when the consuming stops. When the masculine becomes the ground instead of hands that takes. When every man in every home, in every part of this world decides today that his purpose is to protect, to honor, to provide the unshakable stillness that makes her life full life possible. That is not weakness. That is the most powerful thing a man can become. And the world that is built from that decision is the world the feminine has been waiting for, and for a very, very long time. So share this video with someone who thinks the feminine is only being consumed somewhere else in the world. Because the golden cage is the hardest one to see, especially when you are living inside it. And just remember, it's not an advice. It is the code. See you at sunrise.